Olivia sobbed, clutching my arm as if her tears alone could dissolve the truth. "Please, Nathan, I made a mistake," she whispered, her voice trembling, thick with desperation. The woman who once held my heart was now a stranger, reduced to a pleading mess before me. But I had no sympathy left to give, not anymore. I looked down at her, my face unreadable, my pulse steady. A part of me wanted to feel something. Anger, grief, even the bitter sting of betrayal. But I had burned through every emotion in the weeks leading up to this moment. All that remained was resolve. Instead of speaking, I simply picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Her eyes flickered to the device, a brief moment of confusion crossing her face before realization set in. She knew. She knew exactly what I was about to do. "Wait, what are you doing?" she stammered, her grip tightening on my arm. Panic flared in her eyes, wide and glistening under the dim light of our living room. I didn't answer. I pressed. A single moment stretched into eternity as the quiet vibration of her phone cut through the tense silence. Then, another, and another, and another. Her hands flew to her pocket, fumbling, her fingers unsteady as she yanked her phone out. The screen lit up with a flood of notifications. Dozens, no, hundreds each, another nail in the coffin of the life she thought she could salvage. A sharp inhale escaped her lips as her gaze darted to me, wild and pleading. "Nathan," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you do?" I met her gaze with an eerie calm, the same calm that had carried me through every meticulous step of my plan. "I told the truth," I said simply. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the messages, horror dawning with every name she recognized. Mom, Dad, Sarah, work. The world she had so carefully balanced, one built on deception and manipulation, was crashing down around her, and there was no way out. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. "Oh my God." She looked at me again, this time with something else behind her eyes. Fear. For the first time since this all began, she realized she had lost. Olivia's fingers trembled as she scrolled through her phone, her breath coming in short, ragged bursts. Message after message appeared, some confused, others outright furious. The names flashing across her screen were the people she never wanted to know the truth. Her parents, her sister, her boss, friends she had carefully curated, colleagues whose respect she had worked years to earn. Her shoulders shook as she lifted her gaze to me, her lips parted in silent disbelief. You didn't," she whispered, as if saying it aloud would somehow make it untrue. I leaned against the edge of the couch, arms crossed over my chest, my expression unreadable. "You thought you could play me, Olivia, that I'd be weak, that I'd forgive." I let out a small chuckle, shaking my head. "You always did underestimate me." She shook her head frantically, as if trying to shake reality away with it. "No, no, no. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. You weren't supposed to—" She choked on her words, her breath hitching as she turned back to her phone, gripping it so tightly her knuckles went white. Her mother had called 6 times already. Her father, the man she had spent years trying to impress, had left a single message. Cold, blunt. Disappointed doesn't even begin to cover it. "Lose my number." Her eyes filled with fresh tears as she read it again, as if blinking would change the words. "Nathan," she gasped, her voice cracking, "please, we can fix this. I'll tell them." "Tell them what?" I interrupted, my tone sharp, precise. "That it wasn't your fault, that you were confused, that I pushed you into his arms?" I tilted my head, watching her crumble before me. "What's the story this time, Olivia?" She flinched as if I had slapped her. "No," I cut her off, my voice low but firm. "You don't get to twist this, not anymore." A new wave of messages rolled in, notifications buzzing relentlessly, then a different sound, the shrill ring of an incoming call. Olivia barely glanced at the name before rejecting it, her hands shaking too badly to hold the phone steady. But I had seen it. Her boss. She pressed her palm against her forehead, breathing heavily. "Oh God," she whimpered. "I'm going to lose everything." I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of her realization settle. "Yeah," I murmured. "You are." Her chest rose and fell in uneven bursts, her mind racing, desperately searching for a way to regain control. That was who she was, after all. A woman who had always believed she could spin the truth into something more palatable, more convenient. She thought she could talk her way out of anything, but not this time. Her phone rang again. Work. She turned to me, eyes wide, filled with the kind of dread I had once thought I would never wish upon her. But after what she had done? After the way she had looked me in the eyes and lied? After the way she had planned to keep me as her safety net while she entertained another man? She deserved every second of this. Nathan, she tried again, her voice breaking. Please. I stayed silent. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she finally answered the call. I watched as she forced a shaky breath, trying to compose herself, trying to summon whatever charm she had left. Hello? Her voice wavered. Yes, I saw your messages. Silence. Her expression shifted, hope flickering and then dying as she listened. I understand, she stammered, nodding even though no one could see her. But please, can we? Another pause, a long one. Her shoulders sagged. I see. No, I get it. Thank you for calling. She ended the call and stared down at her phone as if willing the screen to disappear. Slowly she turned to me, her face pale. They fired me. Her voice was barely a whisper, hollow and disbelieving. I said nothing. For the first time, Olivia had no excuses, no justifications, no clever way out. And for the first time, she knew it. Olivia's phone slid from her hand, hitting the hardwood floor with a dull thud. She didn't even flinch. Her entire body seemed frozen, her eyes locked on nothing in particular, as if staring too hard at reality would break her completely. The confident, self-assured woman who once believed she could manipulate anyone, who thought she could bend the truth to fit her narrative, was gone. In her place sat someone I barely recognized, a woman unraveling at the seams. She covered her face with her hands, her breath short and uneven. This isn't happening, she muttered, almost to herself, her voice barely audible. This can't be happening. But it was, and there was no escaping it. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, watching as the weight of her downfall settled on her shoulders. There was something almost poetic about the way it was happening, piece by piece, layer by layer, as if she was being forced to feel every consequence she had spent years avoiding. She finally lifted her head, her mascara-streaked face turning toward me, eyes desperate. Nathan, I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But please, her voice broke, raw and pleading. We can fix this. I can fix this. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. Fix what, Olivia? My voice was calm, measured, a stark contrast to her hysteria. Your reputation, your job, your relationship with your family? I tilted my head slightly, my gaze piercing. Or are you talking about us? She flinched, the truth of my words hitting her like a physical blow. I just need time, she whispered, reaching for me, as if she could still salvage something from the wreckage. I can explain everything. I can make them understand. I let out a low, humorless laugh. Make them understand? I repeated, shaking my head in disbelief. Olivia, you lied to everyone. To me, to them, you betrayed me. And you thought you could just smooth it over with a well-rehearsed speech? I took a step forward, watching her shrink back. There is no explaining your way out of this. Not this time. Her phone buzzed again, the relentless notifications refusing to let her escape reality. She hesitated before picking it up, her eyes scanning the screen. Her lips trembled as she read through the messages. Sarah, what the hell, Olivia? Tell me this isn't true. Her boss. The company can't be associated with someone like this. I hope you understand. Her father, your mother won't stop crying. I hope it was worth it. A friend, you disgust me. Don't ever contact me again. The color drained from her face. Every connection she had built, every carefully curated relationship she had maintained, was disintegrating in real time. She looked up at me again, shaking her head furiously. They don't understand, she stammered, her fingers tightening around the phone. They're overreacting. I just need to talk to them. I raised an eyebrow. And say what? That they're wrong for being disgusted? That they should just pretend this never happened? I leaned in slightly, my voice lowering. You thought you could control everything, Olivia. But you never had control. You just had people who trusted you. My lips curled into a smirk. And now, you have nothing. She let out a choked sob, her entire body trembling. I don't deserve this, she whimpered. A sharp bitterness curled in my chest. That was the problem, wasn't it? She never believed she deserved consequences. She thought she could cheat, lie, manipulate, and still land on her feet. She believed that no matter what she did, someone would always be there to catch her. But not this time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope I had prepared days ago. Without a word, I tossed it onto the coffee table in front of her. The sound of thick paper hitting wood made her flinch. Her gaze flickered between me and the envelope, confusion flickering across her tear-streaked face. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she reached for it, hesitating before pulling out the neatly stacked documents inside. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief as she read the words at the top of the page. Divorce papers. Her wide, glassy eyes snapped up to mine. You can't be serious." I shoved my hands into my pockets, exhaling slowly. "I was serious the moment I found out," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "The moment I saw you with him. The moment I realized what kind of person you really are." I met her gaze, unblinking. This is just the final step." She stared at me, eyes filled with pure devastation. "Nathan, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "We've been together for years. You can't just throw it all away." I let out a slow, deliberate breath. 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 I let out a few intense pain. But the joy I experienced, I left the fight. I let that a few. She let out a desperate sob, clutching the papers to her chest like they were a death sentence. "I don't want this," she choked out. "Please, we can get through this. We can—" "No, Olivia," I interrupted, my voice firm. "You don't get to decide anymore." I stepped back, tilting my head. "This isn't a negotiation. This isn't something you can talk your way out of." I gestured toward the papers. "This is happening, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Her body sagged, as if the last shred of her strength had left her. The fight drained from her eyes, replaced by something I had never seen before: defeat. For the first time, she understood. There were no second chances, no rewrites, no saving the story. This was the end, and I was already walking away. Olivia sat motionless, the divorce papers clutched in her trembling hands, as if sheer desperation could make them disappear. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths, her mind clearly scrambling for a way, any way, to turn this around. She had always believed she could talk her way out of anything, that her charm, her words, her perfectly practiced remorse would be enough to mend what she had shattered. But for the first time, she was faced with something she couldn't twist, couldn't manipulate, couldn't undo. Her lips parted, then closed. Her eyes darted across my face, searching for any sign of hesitation, any crack in my resolve, but I had none to offer. I had spent weeks, months, preparing for this moment, draining myself of the love and loyalty that had once bound me to her. She had seen my kindness as weakness, my patience as something to exploit. But now she was staring at the version of me she had never believed existed, cold, unforgiving, done. "Nathan," she finally breathed, the name slipping from her lips like a last-ditch prayer. "Please, you don't have to do this," I exhaled slowly, watching her as if she were a stranger. "But I do," I said, my voice calm, steady. "You made sure of that." Her fingers curled into the papers, crumpling the edges. "I wasn't thinking. She cut herself off, shaking her head rapidly, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a dry chuckle, devoid of warmth. "Didn't mean to?" I echoed, my head tilting slightly. Olivia, you didn't just make a mistake. You made choices, over and over again. My gaze darkened. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just thought you'd never get caught. Her bottom lip trembled. I was scared. I raised an eyebrow. Scared of what? Of being faithful? Of being honest? Of not having a backup plan while you had your fun? I shook my head, disgust curling in my chest. Save it, Olivia. You weren't scared. You were selfish. She let out a soft, pitiful sob, clutching the papers tighter. Nathan, we can fix this, she whispered, her voice nearly breaking. I'll do whatever it takes, I swear. Therapy, counseling, anything. Just don't do this. Don't end us like this. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my jaw, more out of exhaustion than frustration. Olivia, this was over the second you decided I wasn't enough for you. My tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel, not vengeful, just final. You don't get to break us and then beg me to pick up the pieces. I spent too long loving someone who never deserved it. I won't spend another second giving you more chances. Her entire body shook, her breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. I'll tell them it wasn't true, she blurted suddenly, as if a switch had flipped in her mind. I'll tell my parents, my friends, work. I'll say it was all a lie, that someone set me up, that you... Stop, I cut her off, my voice sharper than before. She froze. I took a step closer, my gaze burning into hers. That right there? I gestured toward her, toward the frantic look in her eyes, the way she was still trying to control the damage instead of taking responsibility for it. That's exactly why I'm done with you. Even now, when you've lost everything, your first instinct is to lie, to twist the truth. Her shoulders collapsed as a fresh wave of devastation crashed over her. I don't want to lose you, she choked out. Please, Nathan, I'm not your anything, I interrupted coldly. Not anymore. A choked sob tore from her throat. She buried her face in her hands, her entire body folding in on itself, as if the weight of her own actions was finally crushing her. I let the silence hang between us, the only sound her uneven breathing, the quiet buzzing of her phone still flooding with notifications, each message another person walking away from her. She had built her life on illusion, on control, manipulation, deception, and now, as the truth stood tall before her, there was nowhere left to hide. Slowly, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with a kind of desperation that went beyond sadness. It was the look of someone who truly understood that she had lost, that there was no way back, that I was already gone. I loved you, she whispered. For the first time since this all began, I hesitated. Not because I doubted my decision, not because I felt any lingering attachment, but because I knew deep down that there had been a time when that meant something, a time when I had loved her too. But that time had passed. I let out a slow, even breath. You should have loved me enough to never do this, I said quietly, but you didn't. And with that, I turned away, walking toward the door. Behind me, Olivia let out a strangled cry, her broken sobs echoing in the space we once called home. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around, because this was the moment she realized what true loss felt like, and for once in her life, there was nothing she could do to change it. My footsteps were steady as I walked toward the door, the weight of the past lifting with each step. Behind me, Olivia's sobs filled the room, raw and unrestrained, but they no longer held me in place. Once, I might have turned back, might have let the sound of her pain weaken my resolve. But that version of me, the one who believed in second chances, in forgiveness no matter the crime, was gone. She had killed him the moment she chose betrayal. Nathan, please, her voice cracked barely above a whisper. Don't do this. We can start over. Please, just look at me. I reached for the doorknob but paused, not because her words had an effect, but because I wanted to remember this moment. The exact second she realized that no matter how much she begged, no matter how many tears she shed, I was never coming back. So I turned. She was on the floor now, knees drawn up to her chest, her phone discarded beside her like it had burned her fingertips. Her usually perfect composure had shattered, her mascara streaking down her face, her lips trembling. Olivia, the woman who had always believed she could control everything, was now nothing more than the wreckage of her own destruction. And yet, even now, I could see it. That flicker in her eyes, the last remnant of the woman who had convinced herself she could still win. "This isn't winning, Olivia," I said, as if reading her mind. "This isn't something you can fix. This isn't something you can manipulate." I let my gaze sweep over her, memorizing the image of her downfall. "You lost the moment you decided I didn't matter." She let out a strangled sob. "But you do matter to me," she cried. "No," I interrupted, my voice unwavering. "I mattered when I was your husband. I mattered when I was faithful, when I trusted you, when I spent years believing you were the woman you pretended to be." I took a slow step back, gripping the door handle. "But I don't matter to you now. You're not crying because you love me, Olivia. You're crying because you lost control, because you lost me." She flinched, her breath hitching, but she didn't deny it. She couldn't. The truth stood between us now, undeniable and unforgiving. Her phone buzzed again, and she hesitantly glanced at the screen. Another message. Another severed tie. With shaking fingers, she picked it up, reading the words with a fresh look of devastation. "I hope he leaves you with nothing." She let the phone drop onto the floor again, her entire body trembling. I could have stayed, could have watched her crumble further, could have let her drown in the reality of what she had done. But I had nothing left to give. I pulled the door open. The cool night air met me, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension inside the house. Stepping over the threshold felt like shedding the last remnants of a life I no longer wanted. Behind me, Olivia gasped. "Wait!" I exhaled through my nose, already exhausted by her desperation. But I turned one last time, looking at the woman I had once built a life with. She reached out, as if closing the physical distance between us could somehow pull everything back together. "Just tell me what I can do," she whispered. "Tell me how to make this right." I studied her for a long moment, then I took out my phone, typed a short message, and hit send. A second later, her phone buzzed with the incoming text. She looked at the screen, her brows furrowing as she read my final words. "Not my problem anymore." Her head snapped up, her mouth opening, but before she could say anything, I blocked her number. And then, without another word, I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I walked away, and I never looked back.